Growing up, I used to think differently of the word challenge. It often meant hardship, stress, barely survivable. Whenever I would hear the word, my heart would sink. A pit would form in my stomach. That same painful, nauseated feeling I would get when going home after school, when their home wasn't safe, became the same feeling whenever I heard the word challenge. Because that was what my life had been, as long as I can remember. It wasn't until my early 30s when I began to see it differently. The thing is, I used to carry groceries home, still do. I don't own a car. It used to be because I couldn't afford one. Now it's by choice. I would walk blocks with groceries or ride 30 minutes each way to a grocery store and back, not including waiting for the bus or walking to and from the bus. It's been like that for over a decade. It wasn't until this year that I grew tired. I began dreading the store. I didn't want to carry groceries home after a long bus ride. However, I always would tell myself that challenge is good. Where I'm from, you just suck it up. There are people in other parts of the world that this is a first world problem. But it wasn't until I had a conversation with someone that I realized struggling where there is no growth isn't a challenge one must endure. A challenge is where growth is at the end, like the challenge of taking away the power of certain words that once used to make me feel nauseated. Carrying groceries only for my shoulders to hurt and my feet to ache, that wasn't a challenge. It was an unnecessary burden I placed on myself. I eventually learned to stop forcing myself to endure it and to stop comparing it to what I've already experienced in life. I began to shop at a grocery store nearest to my home, even though it meant spending a bit more. I learned that the word challenge no longer meant the same thing to me, and I learned how some words can hold so much trauma and take on meanings of their own without us realizing that we should be questioning the words that hold so much weight in our lives. Because sometimes we have to rewrite the meaning of what those words mean to us so we can give ourselves permission to operate differently. This doesn't mean that we should avoid doing the necessary things that are hard, but it does mean that we should show ourselves grace when we find ourselves dismissing our discomfort, just like I did with the struggle of carrying groceries home for over a decade, because I didn't know any different. And even when I could afford to shop closer to home, I kept pushing myself through the discomfort because that discomfort became the familiar. Now that I have given myself permission to operate differently, I no longer dread the grocery store, even when I do venture out further from home. The message here is it's okay to choose a different path, even if it's unfamiliar due to past traumas. Sometimes that means relearning and unlearning the things we once knew and taking back our power, like stripping away the heaviness of words and their meanings, and separating our comfort that has become familiar within the discomfort.